So I think anyone who, it just reminds you so much of the industry, right? And it's like you could have a gift like he did with his guitar. And like they said, when he's singing, he's honoring his ancestors and uplifting and all of that. But then it also attracts the not good. So it's like, in order for him to be successful, the vampires were telling him he has to sell out so that he could be, so he could live forever and his music could live forever. And it's exactly like things that I see and go through every day. And that's why I just like broke down crying, because it was showing like the people who decided not to go to the other side. They were in there fighting for their lives. They were in there going through it. While the ones who did give in, they were outside celebrating and having a good time and got things quicker and things like that. So the reason why Sinners resonated with me so much is because it's something that you see every day. And no matter how hard you work, no matter how good of a person that you are, no matter how talented you are, sometimes that's not enough to get you places that you need to be. And that's why Sinners, like, I was crying right after, because I feel like anyone in the industry could really resonate with it.
The polls. I know what y'all picked about the polls. But when the queen speaks, and that's all I'm going to say, and that's all that matters to me.
What happens when the protege dares to outshine the queen? Khloe Bailey just lit a fire under the entire industry, and the match she struck is pointed straight at Beyoncé. In a cryptic yet explosive livestream, Khloe cracked the surface on what she calls a spiritual betrayal, hinting that her career derailment wasn't an accident. It was a warning. She didn't say Beyoncé's name, but she didn't have to. The subtext was loud, the message even louder. Something dark is moving behind the curtain of Parkwood, and Khloe's finally breaking free. Now fans are wondering, was Khloe blackballed for refusing to sell her soul? And even worse, did her own sister Halle make the deal she wouldn't? Because the glow up on one side and the burnout on the other is starting to look less like coincidence and more like sacrifice. Let's unpack this messy, mystical, and possibly manipulated rise and fall of Khloe Bailey. Khloe Bailey didn't have to say Beyoncé's name for the internet to explode. All it took was a live stream, unfiltered, emotional, and dripping with coded language, for the streets to start connecting the dots. And once they did, the picture they painted was darker than anyone expected. What started as a quiet reflection on a movie spiraled into what fans are now calling a spiritual warning. One that suggests Khloe wasn't just pushed aside in the industry, she was sacrificed. In the live stream, Khloe talked about a film called Sinners, but anyone paying attention knew she wasn't really talking about the movie. She was talking about herself. She described a character who, like her, had raw talent and divine purpose, but who was constantly pressured to surrender that gift for worldly success. Khloe said she saw herself in that story, and when she started to cry, it became crystal clear. This wasn't acting. This was testimony. She described a haunting metaphor, vampires offering fame in exchange for a soul. They promised the character that if he gave in, he could live forever, that his music would become immortal. But if he refused, he'd be left to struggle, clawing through a system that rewards submission over substance. And that's when Khloe's voice cracked. She spoke about watching those who sold out thrive, laughing, winning, celebrated, while those who stayed true to themselves were left to fight, suffer, and be forgotten. It hit too close to home. Khloe started crying in the middle of explaining it, saying that no matter how hard you work, how talented you are, or how good of a person you try to be, it's never enough unless you're willing to give a part of yourself away. That's what shook fans. Not just the tears, but the underlying pain, the exhaustion, the bitterness of someone who tried to play fair in a rigged game and lost. She said, "It's something you see every day." And we did. We watched her rise with Beyoncé's backing, only to plateau. We watched the push, the promotion, the presence, but none of it translated into true success. And now, we might know why. Because what Khloe was describing wasn't just disappointment in her career. It was a betrayal of something sacred. She talked about people being forced to cross over to the other side. That exact phrase, the other side, sent chills through the fan base. Spiritual TikTok went wild. YouTube theorists called it confession. In certain circles, that phrase is code. It doesn't mean death. It means a ritual, a trade, a price. And Khloe made it clear. She didn't go, but someone else might have. The way she spoke wasn't just emotional, it was defiant. She wasn't confused. She wasn't searching for answers. She knew what she was rejecting, and she knew exactly what it cost her. The fame she was promised, the success she worked for, the spotlight she earned, all stripped away because she said no. And she's not the first to hint at this kind of deal. But what made Khloe's revelation different is that she wrapped it in faith. She talked about honoring her ancestors through music, about staying grounded in purpose, about how the world punishes light when it refuses to dim. She wasn't just talking about contracts and streaming numbers. She was talking about energy, about souls, about spiritual warfare. And that's why fans are calling it a betrayal. Not just of Khloe by the industry, but of Khloe by someone who was supposed to protect her. Because let's be real, when people talk about female artists navigating a twisted industry, Beyoncé is usually the name whispered behind closed doors. Not because she's untalented, but because she sits atop a machine that chews up and discards everyone who doesn't submit. So when Khloe started speaking in riddles, fans didn't hear confusion. They heard survival. They heard someone who had seen the inside of something sinister and refused to participate. And now, she's paying the price. The betrayal Khloe hinted at wasn't just business. It was spiritual, and that makes it 10 times more chilling. Because in her tears, in her trembling voice, in that strange mixture of heartbreak and quiet rebellion, Khloe wasn't just telling a story. She was warning us. Khloe didn't need to drop names. She didn't need to say Beyoncé. Because the second she started talking about vampires selling your soul and the other side, the internet did what it always does, connected the dots. And all those dots pointed in one direction, the queen herself. The language Khloe used wasn't random. It was surgical. She chose metaphors that live at the heart of every industry conspiracy theory we've heard for the last 20 years. Selling your soul, crossing over, fame through sacrifice. This is not new vocabulary. These are phrases deeply embedded in Hollywood's darkest lore. And whether she meant to or not, Khloe triggered an avalanche of speculation that's been brewing beneath the surface for years. It was her tone, too. She wasn't angry. She wasn't lashing out. She was calm, reflective, almost mournful. That made it hit harder. Because when someone cries through coded language instead of calling people out directly, it means the fear runs deep. And in this industry, people don't usually cry unless they've seen something they wish they could unsee. Fans immediately latched onto her use of vampires, not just as fictional creatures, but as symbols. In occult lore and spiritual communities, vampires aren't just bloodsuckers. They're entities that drain life force. In the entertainment world, they become a metaphor for execs, handlers, and powerful gatekeepers who feed off the energy and innocence of rising stars. And when Khloe said the vampires told the character he could live forever if he gave in, that's not just a plot twist. That's a warning. Immortality through surrender. Fame through compromise. Legacy through loss of self. That symbolism goes way back. And so does Beyoncé's name in these conversations. Let's be honest. Whenever people talk about the Illuminati, the entertainment elite, or hidden rituals behind Hollywood fame, Beyoncé and Jay-Z are always at the center. It's not just that they're powerful. It's that they seem untouchable. For over a decade, fans and theorists alike have dissected their music videos, stage performances, and business moves looking for signs. The hand signs, the pyramid imagery, the repeated motifs of rebirth, fire, control, and light. It's all there. And so are the whispers. There's long been speculation that Beyoncé ascended to the top not just through talent and timing, but through alignment with what exactly depends on who you ask. Some say it's occult power. Others say it's ritualistic branding. But the theory that's gained the most traction is this. Beyoncé doesn't just survive in the industry. She controls the gate. And no one under her empire thrives without submitting to that system. So when Khloe, her own protégé, starts talking about refusing to give in, about being punished for holding on to her soul, fans knew exactly what she meant. It was like she lit a match in a gas-filled room. Every cryptic post, every career setback, every moment Khloe was sidelined despite being the full package, it all suddenly made sense. And let's not forget the visual parallels. Beyoncé has long been associated with high-concept visuals dripping in mysticism and coded power. Her Black is King era was filled with ancestral references and spiritual motifs, but also sparked renewed conversation about her ties to the occult. The internet called her Queen of the Illuminati, half-jokingly, until more and more artists started hinting that there was truth behind the myth. And Khloe just joined that chorus. Even the way she described the character in Sinners, gifted, spiritually connected, but surrounded by forces trying to manipulate his light, felt like a mirror. A mirror to her own journey, and maybe even a subtle contrast to the woman who was once her mentor. Because if Khloe is the gifted soul fighting to stay clean, who does that make the ones on the other side? Who's already crossed over? People didn't hesitate. They filled the blank space she left with Beyoncé's name. Not out of hate, but because it fits the pattern we've seen too many times before. The protégés who fade, the chosen ones who rise, the silence that follows. Khloe's livestream wasn't just confessional. It was strategic, because in this industry, saying too much can get you locked out, or worse. But if you know how to speak in symbols, if you know how to let fans say the quiet part out loud for you, that's power. That's survival. And Khloe might finally be learning how to play the game on her own terms. Because what she said, without saying it, was that she saw the deal. She was offered the contract, the fast track, the eternal glow, but she knew what it cost. And when she chose herself, she lost everything else. That's not just a career hiccup. That's a coded message to every artist watching from the sidelines. A quiet rebellion against the machine. And whether Beyoncé meant to or not, she's become the face of that machine. Now the question isn't whether Khloe was talking about her. The real question is, what exactly did she turn down? And what was Beyoncé willing to do to protect the ones who didn't? From the outside looking in, Khloe Bailey was supposed to win. The blueprint was flawless. She had the voice, the look, the choreography, the social media presence, and the ultimate cosign, Beyoncé herself. What more could an up-and-coming pop girl ask for? Her visuals were crisp. Her performances? Polished. Her confidence? Unshakable. And yet, none of it landed the way it should have. Despite doing everything right, Khloe's career has stalled out in real time, and fans are left wondering, how did someone with superstar DNA become the industry's biggest question mark? Her debut album came and went with barely a ripple. Despite heavy promotion, strategic rollout, and viral moments on social media, the project failed to chart in any meaningful way. The numbers flopped, the streams lagged, and the mainstream didn't bite. And this wasn't just a slow start. It was an outright failure by industry standards. The same girl who'd gone viral for her Have Mercy performances was suddenly struggling to move units. The math wasn't mattering. And what made it worse? Watching other, lesser talented pop girls thrive while Khloe faded. There are artists right now, can't sing, can't dance, barely show up with visuals, who are charting effortlessly, headlining festivals, and stacking endorsement deals. Meanwhile, Khloe's out here serving stadium-ready performances to underwhelming crowd sizes. It's a mismatch, one that points to a deeper issue than just market saturation. Because talent alone doesn't dictate success in this business. It's access, it's backing, it's timing, and sometimes it's control. And that brings us straight to the elephant in the room, Parkwood Entertainment. When Khloe and Halle signed with Beyoncé's label, the world cheered. It felt like a passing of the torch, a younger version of Destiny's Child. Beyoncé handpicking her protégés, building them into the next generation. But over time, the fantasy cracked. Because while Beyoncé's star only burned brighter, every other artist under Parkwood started to disappear. Let's talk receipts. Sophie Beam was once hailed as Beyoncé's teenage prodigy, signed with a bang, flooded with praise. But after a few singles and an EP, her career vanished. Not because she lacked talent, but because Parkwood allegedly shelved her in a development deal for 2 years, only to let her go when the hype died down. No tour, no album, no legacy. Then there's Ingrid Burley, a gifted songwriter who helped pen Love Drought for Beyoncé herself. She had the pen, the voice, the vision. But her debut album, Under Parkwood, never even saw the light of day. According to whispers in the industry, the label sat on it until her contract expired, and just like that, her momentum was gone. And now, fans are realizing Khloe might be next in line. Despite all her efforts, Khloe's rollout was messy. Her second album didn't even chart. Her visuals were often ahead of their time, but there was no label support to push them to the forefront. And when you look at the pattern across Parkwood, it's hard to ignore. The only artist who thrives under Beyoncé's watch is Beyoncé. Because let's be honest, Beyoncé is not a label head. She's an empire. She's a mother, a performer, a billionaire brand, and managing other artists just doesn't seem to be her priority. The focus has always been, and maybe always will be, on maintaining her own legend. Everyone else, background noise. That brings us to the moment fans really started side-eyeing the situation. The infamous single poll. Before dropping her debut album, Khloe went to Twitter and asked her fans to vote between 2 singles, Surprise and For the Night. The fans chose For the Night overwhelmingly. It was clear. It was loud. It was democracy in action. But when release day came, Khloe dropped Surprise instead. Fans were confused, frustrated. Some were outright angry. But then Khloe went live and gave a chillingly simple explanation. When the queen speaks, the queen speaks. And that's all that matters to me. And just like that, the illusion shattered. Because what Khloe was admitting, without even realizing it, was that she wasn't in control. Not of her music, not of her rollout, and maybe not even of her image. That single moment confirmed what many fans had feared for years. Khloe wasn't calling the shots. Beyoncé was. And it wasn't just a creative decision, it was symbolic. It showed that no matter how talented or hardworking Khloe was, her instincts, her connection to her fans, and her right to choose were all being overridden. She was being handled. And that's when fans stopped seeing her as a budding icon and started seeing her as a pawn. That's also when the whispers got louder. Was Khloe's lack of success really just bad timing? Or was it punishment? A consequence for not playing the game the way others have? For not crossing over to the other side? Because the way it's all unfolding doesn't feel random. It feels deliberate. And no matter how much Khloe smiles through it, fans can sense the disconnect, the tension between who she is and who she's being forced to become. She has the fire. She has the vision. She has the raw, unfiltered factor that can't be taught. But as long as she's under someone else's thumb, especially someone as powerful and controlling as Beyoncé, her light will never fully shine. And maybe that's the point. For years, Khloe and Halle were inseparable, 2 sisters moving as one, bonded not just by blood but by a shared dream. They rose together, sang together, smiled through the same red carpets, and balanced each other's energy like yin and yang. But somewhere along the road, something shifted. And now, the contrast between their careers is impossible to ignore. While Khloe struggles to find her footing, Halle's star is blazing. In just a few short years, Halle Bailey has gone from Disney darling to international girl. She landed the lead in The Little Mermaid, signed major fashion deals, attended A-list events in Paris, and graced red carpets like a seasoned Hollywood veteran. She's got a solo Grammy nomination, new music in the pipeline, and a fan base that grows more protective of her by the day. She's booked, praised, and thriving. Every door she knocks on opens. And fans are starting to ask the uncomfortable question, how? Because Khloe didn't fall off due to lack of talent. If anything, she has more of what the industry claims to value: raw vocals, commanding stage presence, visionary visuals, and a boldness that should be magnetic. And yet, while she fumbles with poor promo, questionable rollouts, and label silence, her younger sister is enjoying the kind of support and opportunity most young black actresses can only dream of. So naturally, people are wondering, did Halle play the game? Now, to be clear, no one's accusing Halle of anything sinister. But in a business where artists whisper about hidden deals, energy shifts, and spiritual exchanges, fans are starting to speculate that maybe, just maybe, Halle said yes to things Khloe said no to, because the timing is just too eerie. Their paths, once parallel, now feel like polar opposites. And it's not just career direction. It's energy, it's presence, it's purpose. When Khloe cried during her live stream and spoke about people who gave and living carefree, while those who didn't were left to struggle, fans couldn't help but read between the lines. She was talking about more than the industry. She was talking about a divide, a fork in the road. And whether she meant to or not, she seemed to imply that she and Halle ended up on opposite sides of that fork. The public narrative claims they just wanted to explore solo projects, and maybe that's true on the surface. But something about the separation feels deeper, because you don't go from soulmates in sound to radio silence for no reason. We rarely see them together now. No new music, no interviews, no red carpet photos. And that sisterly warmth that once defined them, it's been replaced with distance. Fans have noticed, and they're not buying the just career timing excuse anymore. Many believe the sisters had a spiritual, even ideological split, one that had everything to do with how far each was willing to go to make it. And while Khloe wrestles in the shadows, trying to stay grounded and pure in a system built on sacrifice, Halle is shining effortlessly, maybe too effortlessly. And that contrast has people talking, because this isn't just about sisters. It's about a bigger pattern. Khloe's story, talented, pure, vocal about faith, and yet always one step away from success, echoes the stories of so many others in this industry who refuse to play by unspoken rules. Carrie Hilson, Tinashe, Azealia Banks, even JoJo, artists who had the voice, the vision, and the backing, but mysteriously hit ceilings that didn't match their talent. And when they spoke up about control, betrayal, or refusal to comply, their careers were iced out almost overnight. Now Khloe's fans are asking if she's just the latest casualty, because when you zoom out, the pattern is haunting. Bright young talent gets co-signed, gets a label, gets the dream machine behind them, and then stalls. And who's standing at the top of this particular machine? Beyoncé, the queen, the gatekeeper, the woman with the power to elevate or eliminate. Some fans are starting to believe Beyoncé doesn't nurture stars, she absorbs them. That Parkwood isn't a launch pad, it's a vault. And if you don't fall in line, if you don't sacrifice the parts of yourself they want, you don't get to rise. You stay stuck, trapped in contracts, shelved albums, and unanswered potential. It's not that Khloe isn't marketable. She's too marketable, and that's the threat. If she fully bloomed, she'd be competition. So maybe, just maybe, keeping her under wraps serves someone else's legacy. And Khloe knows it. That's why her silence has been so chilling. Not weak, strategic. Because when you're under a label like Parkwood, under someone as powerful as Beyoncé, you don't speak freely. You speak in riddles. You cry in metaphors. You tell the truth in shadows, not light. But now, that silence is breaking. Her live stream was the first crack. Not an explosion, but a quiet rebellion. A signal that she's done playing nice. That she's ready to reclaim her voice, even if it means going to war with the very system that once promised to protect her. This isn't just about Khloe versus Beyoncé, or Khloe versus Halle. It's about Khloe versus the machine. A machine that punishes integrity and rewards compliance. And for every fan who's watched her work herself to the bone only to get breadcrumbs, this is the moment it all starts to make sense. She didn't fail. She resisted. And now the world is finally paying attention. In an industry that rewards obedience, silence, and sacrifice, Khloe Bailey chose the path of resistance. And now, she's living with the consequences. She didn't sell her soul. She didn't play the game. She didn't bend the knee to the powers that run the machine behind the curtain. Instead, she tried to do it the right way, with integrity, with artistry, with faith. And for that, she's been punished. Silently, systematically, brutally. Khloe Bailey is the living, breathing reminder of what happens when you say no. No to the blood contracts. No to the pre-packaged image. No to being the puppet for someone else's empire. No to worshiping at the altar of power disguised as mentorship. And let's be honest, Everyone saw what she could have been. The talent? Unmatched. The visuals? Cinematic. The voice? Trained and timeless. The star quality? Obvious. Khloe wasn't lacking anything except the willingness to give up everything. And that's what's made her dangerous. Because what the industry fears most isn't someone who fails. It's someone who knows the truth and still refuses to bow. Someone who's been to the other side of the curtain, seen what's asked of you, and said, no, I won't do it, and still dares to sing. The live stream wasn't just a breakdown. It was a breakthrough, a message wrapped in metaphors, cloaked in tears. But for those listening with more than just ears, for those attuned to the deeper frequencies of fame, sacrifice, and spiritual warfare, it was a war cry. She spoke of vampires, a betrayal, of people dancing happily while secretly being devoured, of seeing the light, but choosing the shadow. That wasn't about petty industry beef. That was testimony, and it hit like scripture. Because at the center of all this, beyond the drama, beyond the speculation, is a woman who believed in her gift, believed in God, and believed she could win without compromise. And now she's finding out that the industry was never built for people like her. The truth is, Beyoncé might not have ruined Khloe's career, but she certainly didn't protect it. For all the talk of mentorship, empowerment, and sisterhood, Khloe was left to fall alone, pushed out on stage with no support, no strategy, and no shield. And as the rollout flopped, the numbers flailed, and the media turned on her. Where was Parkwood? Where was the queen? Silent, as always. But here's the thing about silence. It speaks volumes. And now, fans are starting to listen. Really listen. They're asking hard questions, drawing lines, connecting dots. And for the first time, the protected image of Beyoncé, the flawless, untouchable goddess, has a crack. It's small, but it's growing. Because if Khloe was the chosen one, then why was she sacrificed? And if she wasn't sacrificed, then who is she protecting? See, the price of saying no isn't just stalled albums or bad PR. It's isolation. It's being ghosted by the very people who once called you family. It's being watched as others soar, knowing you could have been there too, if only you folded. If only you gave in. But Khloe didn't. And that's why this isn't the end. This is just the beginning. Because for the first time, she's letting the mask slip. She's speaking carefully, cautiously, but she's speaking. And now that fans are tuned in, now that the whispers are turning into roars, the narrative is shifting. She's not bitter. She's not a flop. She's not lost. She's surviving. She's awakening. She's reclaiming. And if Beyoncé built an empire on being untouchable, she might want to brace herself. Because Khloe isn't just telling her story. She's cracking the door for others who've been silenced to step through. Others who've also said no. Others who are done being puppets. This is bigger than one artist. Bigger than one album. Bigger than one live stream. This is about the spiritual cost of fame, the hidden contracts beneath the glitz, and the price you pay when you refuse to sell your soul. And Khloe Bailey? She may have lost the charts, the promo, the push, but she kept herself. And in this industry, that makes her the rarest kind of star. So stay tuned, because if the queen thinks Khloe is going quietly, she's mistaken. The storm is coming. And this time, it's personal.